Hi and welcome to Marketing Talks, where we uncover insights from business owners and marketing professionals. Today I am welcoming a very special guest to the show. Richard Beazley is the owner and chief craftsman of WickerWorks, a cane and wicker furniture restoration business based in Adelaide, South Australia. He also happens to be my dad. We'll be talking about how Richard found his niche, turned it into a thriving business of more than 36 years. We'll also explore how he's managed to innovate over the years and how the internet has opened new doors to new opportunities. Today's show will be interesting for anyone who is trying to find their niche, how to become an expert in that niche, and why innovation is key to business success. Okay, let's jump in. So, welcome to Marketing Talks. Thanks for joining.
That's good to talk to you, Greg.
Yes, likewise, Richard Beazley. It's very weird to say that. No, I'm going to start because I'm super excited to have this call with you. Not just because you're my father, but also because you're actually the person who got me into online marketing.
So really? You never told me that.
You are. Believe it or not, you are the person who got me into this space. So I really appreciate that. And so you have a really interesting story and background to your business. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about what WickerWorks is and how you came about finding your niche in the cane and wicker restoration space.
Well, basically, it was by accident because an old friend of ours at the time was asking me to relocate his business. And whilst I was there, he showed me a couple of old Bentwick chairs, which I've had a little bit of experience with whilst I was living in Holland in the business over there and furniture restoration game. So I said, yep, I'll help you out. And it's the first time I've ever done anything like that. I always put my hand up for something like that. So that restoration started way back 36 odd years ago. And I just found my passion first. It wasn't a niche. I never even heard of a niche word. I never heard of that for a business. I wasn't even looking for a business. And then it kind of grew gradually to an extent where I found that I could make it a niche business. So that's how it kind of started all those many years ago.
It's quite a strange niche to just fall into. What was the process? Can you go into a bit more detail? Like what made you land on Wicker?
Well, I've often thought about that myself. The only thing I can think of is that my very first recollection of it was whilst living in Holland, and I was in the building trade then, so I was hands-on anyway. I used to ride my bike home along the top of the dike towards my home, and there was one little area where I used to look down, and of the late evening, the lights were on, and there was this, seemed to me, fairly old guy then. He was probably younger than what I am now, but he was weaving a basket, and I used to sit there for a couple of minutes on my bike, and I was just kind of fascinated watching him through the window. I mean, he could see me, but because it was a bit too dark, but I could just watch him doing it. And I think maybe that was the first kind of thought that was embedded in my brain then, that I might be interested in that kind of career. I had no idea. Yeah. And then there was another time was we had, as you know, an old cottage in Holland, and we had the roof rethatched, and I was in awe watching this guy thatch a roof. So who knows whether that came from there? I really don't know. But if you had said to me from then and there to the day I started doing cane and wicker, you're going to have a business in this field, I would have laughed at you because it just didn't mean anything to me. So it kind of fell onto my lap, I guess, and I enjoyed it. That's the biggest part. I enjoyed doing the renovation and restoration work, and the cane bit seemed to come with it. And I just got a fascination for it, as you know, Greg, and that was it. The rest is history. I kept pursuing it all that time.
That's so good. I mean, I think anyone can be really blessed to find their passion. I think it's quite often a real big challenge for a lot of people to do that. Okay, so you found your craft or your niche, so to speak, but how niche is that niche? How many people in Australia do what you do?
Well, at the time, I guess there was a good handful or more, especially around Adelaide, South Australia, where I'm from. I couldn't really answer about the rest of Australia, but there was a lot of cane shops, retail shops around the place, and selling from baskets to furniture, of course. But gradually over the years, I think the trend disappeared a little bit. It became more upmarket furniture, and all the cheaper kind of furniture and baskets kind of disappeared. And then you got the larger companies coming in, and we've got, as you know here, Harvey Norman's, and you got IKEA. Those sort of companies started coming, and they brought their own products in, which probably killed a lot of the smaller businesses. So to answer your question, really, I think there may have been, as I say, about a handful of people doing a little bit of cane work. There were a few antique dealers around that I know that did some of it, but there wasn't a business in it. And that's kind of what opened my eyes. I thought, right, I initially drove around to as many antique shops and dealers I could, handing my terrible little business card I made up. And I got good feedback. So I thought, okay, I do the right thing. I do the good job as best I can. I got a few jobs out of it, and it just grew from there. So, but now there's very few of us. A lot of them have either passed away, or the businesses have gone through the loop, or there's no demand, minimum demand for it. We used to have the blind welfare that used to do a lot of caning work and basket weaving, but there was no money in it. And then the older generation, people that used to do that, obviously eventually passed away, and there was no one new coming in to teach it. So I think it's definitely become a niche market for myself. There's only two others I know, or three others I know in the whole of Australia that do some of the work that I do, but certainly not the amount of work that I do. There might be one other that I know that has had his business for probably as long as I have, if not longer. He inherited it from his father, so he's quite good at what he does, but he hasn't got a good website. I can tell that. So I drive a lot of traffic to my website where he doesn't. So I actually don't just get work from South Australia, but it comes from all over Australia.
And the world, right?
The world, in fact, yeah. Now I'm having jobs coming from the States and Canada. I've done a couple of jobs sent to England, New Zealand. Yep, that's good, really good.
Do you think it's a dying niche, or do you think that it'll always have some sort of presence in the world?
The restoration will always be there in this kind of business. It's whether the person, I mean, if I were to kick the bucket tomorrow, which touch wood, it won't happen, but there's no one that's going to take over. So if someone's passionate as much as I am about this business, they could make a good career out of it, and they can naturally expand on that. There's lots of other avenues you can expand on.
Yeah.
But that's, it's one of those things that I could have a really good business, but to find someone that might be suitable to want to take it on, that's another story.
I was always really fascinated when you said that you're getting clients from around the world sending you work to restore. So tell me, what are some of the most interesting projects you've worked on since being in your business?
Oh gosh, I think I could write a book about all the different things. It's quite amazing. I mean, naturally I've done a lot of prams, Dodge prams over the years. They've been fascinating to do because there's a lot of history with them. There's a lot of sentimental value with prams. Mums bring me these dilapidated prams that I've had in the garage, and all of a sudden they've got a granddaughter on the way and they want to have it restored, and it brings back a lot of, in many cases, a lot of memories for those ladies that kind of start reminiscing and thinking about their past when they see their pram restored. That's rewarding, and knowing it's going to last for another 100 years. But the most interesting ones I've done really is I do vintage umbrella holders for people that have got enthusiasts that own these fantastic vintage cars. And so they want a made to order umbrella holder. I've done one just recently, went back over to the States, and it's for a 1903 or something like that, Stanley steam driven car. And it's his pride and joy. I've seen the pictures. He's absolutely blown away by this. Then he wanted some vintage umbrellas to go with it, and I just gave him a link online, and he said, yeah, my wife's bought some of them now. That's great. So that gives me a real buzz. Many years ago, I had a guy come to me and he asked if I was interested in making a pilot seat for him for a vintage Sopwith World War I biplane. I thought he was a tire kicker, one of these guys that just, I don't know, asking me silly questions. But anyway, long and the short of it, he sent me some drawings, and I thought, yeah, this sounds good. So I made one of them. Didn't hear any much of it. It was quite difficult to do, to steam bend the cane and make this. And I made it directly from the old drawings that he gave me, which were all classified information in those days. Anyway, didn't hear much from him. And then I thought, I know what I might do. When I had my website built, I decided to put a page on there about World War One vintage pilot seats, just to say that I've done one. And all of a sudden, they all started coming in. A couple from New Zealand asked me to do some, and then the rest were from the US, Canada, England, a couple more here in Australia. I don't get a lot of them, but not that I want a lot, you know, I don't want to be manufacturing them, but they're all separately, individually made. So they're all got a slight uniqueness about them. So I've done a few of them, which I quite enjoy. Vintage hampers, baskets to go back onto the vintage cars. Anything that's got to be slightly different that you're not going to get off the shelf, so to speak. Yeah. But the best one, as you know, would have been the vintage car. When I had this guy from Castlemaine, Victoria, he bought this chassis, vintage, I think it was called a Beacon, a 1913 vintage chassis with a chipboard plywood body on it and a two-stroke engine. It was quite a funny little thing. And it was his dream. He was about the same age as me, maybe 2 or 3 years younger, but it was his dream, God knows where it came from, to have a vintage car, but with a wicker body. He'd seen a few pictures. So he approached me. I gave him some drawings, how I think it could have been done, and I did a bit of research. And anyway, eventually he brought it over, he drove it over from Victoria, and I think I spent about 3.5 months on it. Not continuously, but it was over the Christmas and New Year period where we had a bit of a break, so I got stuck into it that way. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the biggest challenge ever. It was very time consuming, and I had to make the base, the floorboards up, which had to fit over the clutch and gearbox area and the pedals and the steering. It was a full-on job. But anyway, I did that, and what made my day was when he came and saw it. He'd already seen a few pictures when I finished it, but what made my day, he came in, opened the garage door, saw it for the first time, touched it, and shed a tear. And this is because it meant so much to him, and that means a lot to me. That's the buzz and pride I get out of it. And we wrapped it all up, sent it back on, and it's like a little chitty chitty bang bang, only all made out of wicker. It's fascinating. So yeah, I thought, gee, if I can do that, then I should be able to do it. But it was a learning curve. Everything's a learning curve with me, because you don't get these things come on your lap every 5 minutes of the day. So it's been enjoyable. And wicker sidecars for motorbikes is another one I do. Got a couple of them coming in next year. So they're the sort of things I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, because it's like, I think most people would think of cane and wicker restoration as like basic chairs, like seats, and maybe some lounge chairs and things like that. But there's cane in so many different things. I mean, when you told me about the plane chassis, I was like, I couldn't even believe it that something like that would exist. But you've also done a lot of hot air balloon baskets. I mean, they're typically cane based, right?
They're all made out of solid rattan. To actually make them, you have to have a proper license to do them. And I haven't got that. There's a couple of people in somewhere in New South Wales, I think, that actually all they do is that. Whether they're still around, I don't really know, because the market's changed. You know, people sometimes source it offshore because it's cheaper, because it's very labor intensive and it's very hard on your hands to do. But yeah, we kind of had a bit of a contract with the Barossa Valley balloon baskets, adventure baskets that are up here in the Barossa Valley, and they got, as you know, well, you do know, because I remember you being with us when we had a rough landing one day. And so, yeah, some of those balloons do get a bit of rough landings, and consequently, it's only the wicker that gets perished. The timber frames seem to be pretty good. It's still one of the most safest way to fly around the countryside, I suppose, but the baskets just need a bit of weaving in the bottom just to get rid of the broken bits here and there. So yeah, I did a few of
Yeah.
them over the years.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's
I love
interesting.
that. I love that. Maybe we can go back to the business side of things. So
Sure. Yeah.
what have been some of the most challenging parts of running your business?
Finding enough hours in a day sometimes is challenging, but I guess really sometimes it was sourcing the materials to get the right materials for their jobs. At the time, early in the days, there was a supplier, which was good, but it wasn't regular. So that sometimes was a bit challenging to source the correct materials, because as the trade or the industry sort of started dying out a little bit, because we had a couple of manufacturers here in South Australia that used to buy in materials to help with what they call knockdown furniture. So they buy the knockdown furniture, import that, and then they use the binding and rattan to dress the chairs up. They did that themselves here, but as they started totally importing furniture rather than just doing the work here, that industry of supplying materials started dwindling down. And of course, you had the blind welfare that used to buy a fair bit. A lot of schools, a lot of nursing homes used to buy a bit of material. So as they started disappearing because there was no one teaching it, the supplier decided, well, you know, maybe enough's enough. We've got to hang our boots up, and we may not be in business much longer. So that was the time when I started importing directly myself. So that was a challenging time.
Did you have to go to the actual manufacturer to source the material?
Eventually, as the business grew, I started going to Cebu in the Philippines to buy in furniture and baskets, because I ended up expanding the business and we're having a retail outlet, and we started wholesaling, and that was very good, a lot of fun. And because I was importing the furniture, it was an opportunity to put in the containers some raw materials. So that's how it kind of, you know, filled the gaps up a little bit. Yeah, I think my biggest challenge was, unfortunately, I didn't have an education like you have in marketing. I was a little bit green on managing a shop. So with not having that under my belt, I think it became slow and costly. Advertising is costly. Overheads can be extremely expensive. So not having a good budget. So they're the challenges I think I faced. But I think what got me through all that was, I guess, to keep on going. I just enjoyed my passion. I'd get up in the morning and love going to work. So I'd get all the job done, even though I had retail and restoration going, and we did a bit of manufacturing. The actual restoration side of WickerWorks, which I call it now, used to be called Cane and Bentwood Repair Service, but always supplied me work. So I kept nurturing that. You know, retail goes up and down, but the restoration was constantly there all the time.
So you've got those basic like brewer chairs, so with machine woven cane in the seat, and a lot of people have probably seen them. They might not know what they're called, but I was always fascinated by how many of those chairs you would get every week. How many of those types of chairs do you get on a weekly basis now?
In the good days, because when you think of it, like kind of every man and his dog had a Bentwood chair in their home somewhere. And the brewer's Seska chairs, which is what you're referring to, a lot of cafes and restaurants own them too. And the recaning of seats in those days, we'd average, and I'm not joking, we'd average between 45 and 50 seats a week. Yeah, and it used to take 3 days for 4 of us, as you can remember, you and your brother Roger and our little fellow called Oscar, as you probably remember. We'd Thursday nights, we'd get the pizzas in, and we route it and make lots of noise and crank the music up, and we get all the dirty, dusty work done. And then the next day, Oscar and myself would do all the cane work, and then the third day they'll be all polished, ready to go out. But that was, I kid you not, there was an average 45 to 50 seats a week constantly, and that only left us 2 other days a week where we do other restoration work and other parts of the business. So it was mind-boggling. Yeah.
And that's mostly from South Australia, right?
That
Or
was
was
only
that?
South Australia.
Yeah, that's
That,
incredible.
that was only South Australia. Now
That's
and again, you
incredible.
might got someone that hear about you, because don't forget, we didn't have the internet then.
Of
It wasn't.
course.
We
Yeah.
didn't have that.
Yeah. To think that there was that many seats being broken on a weekly basis and that many people thinking I should get that repaired and that many people actually finding someone to repair it and
Mm.
then taking it in. There's a whole bunch
Mm.
of steps to get to that to that
That's
stage.
right.
And
That's right.
that's incredible. And I mean, I guess what probably helped was during that time, you had like Freedom Furniture and a bunch of other larger furniture companies that were selling a lot of these chairs. So it was more in fashion, I
That's
suppose.
right. That's right.
And perhaps you don't see that as often these days. But I've noticed, particularly, I always keep an eye out for these things as well because I've grown up with it. But it's a very fashionable thing. Like Wicker and Kane products just seem to pop up every now and then. You're like, oh, I haven't seen that for a while, or I start seeing it on Instagram, for example, or
Well, exactly.
in random craft stores or furniture stores. I'm like, wow, it's almost like like a sub niche type fashionable thing to have some type of wicker furniture in your house.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like an accessory now to have anything with rattan in. Like
Yeah.
even IKEA starting to do it now. Only about 6 to 8 months ago, I guess, there was a fella on Instagram who put up a post who got a cupboard. He took a photograph of an antique cupboard that had rattan, very fine timber and lovely rattan doors. And he says, oh, that's priced at $2,500–3,000 or something like that. So he said, but I can go to IKEA and buy something very similar with glass doors, take the glass out and put rattan on, and Bob's your uncle. I've got a lookalike cupboard that's worth $2,000. So he said, I just need to source the rattan. That Instagram post, people had bought cane off of me and told this fellow that this is where they bought the cane. And naturally, the fellow was actually in the States, but he had a big following. He had quite a few jobs that came via that post, I guess, sourcing the materials. So it's not just doing the restoration work in cane seats that I do. I'm now supplying the raw materials for people that want to do that. And that's what's expanded in the last, probably a good 3 years ago. And it hasn't stopped. In fact, now that takes almost 70% of our business is just supplying materials, and the other 30% or 25% roughly is restoration work. So I'm spending less time on restoration work, which is good because my hands get a bit tired after a while. It just shows if I'm going from 40 seats a week then down to, say, down sometimes between 8 and 10, sometimes 15 seats a week. I've employed someone else to do that part for me, which is good, but it frees me up now time to do the things I really like doing, like the car bodies, if I get another one of them or something different. But there's 2 to 3 days a week where I'm just sending parcels, and that's the good fun about this business, because you can diversify. You can change it to tweak it, whatever the fashion, where the trend is.
Of course.
So follow the trend as your friend, they say.
Yeah, that's really interesting of how the business has evolved over the years. I mean, you said you've been in business for 36 odd years. Now, with the influx of the internet, you have all of a sudden this world market that you can now reach. And you're probably only reaching a very small part of it, but there's so many people in the world that are probably really looking hard for people like yourself, or don't actually know that people like yourself exist. So
I give you an example of that using social media. I've got a Facebook group, Cane and Wicker Furniture Restoration, and there was a guy visiting Austria. He was actually from Germany, but he was visiting Austria for a holiday, walking down a little lane street in the middle of Austria, and he saw a sign saying chair caning, and the fella happened to be outside, got talking to him. The guy that was on holiday, who's a German anyway, said, I've got this lovely old chair, been in the family for years and years. I'd love to get it recaned. Trouble is, he said, I'm not living here. I live in Australia. So the fellow running the shop turned and said, oh, that's no problem. I can put you in touch with Richard, the Wicker guru in South Australia. Actually, he didn't say South Australia, he said just Australia. So the guy was gobsmacked. He said, what do you mean? He said, oh, he's on a Facebook group. We know him pretty well. And he gave him my details. I got in contact with him. And when the fella eventually came back to Australia, he phoned me up, told me that story. And he said, whereabouts are you? I said, I'm here in Adelaide. I thought, that's unbelievable, because I'm just down the road, called Seacombe Gardens. So, and that's how that kind of thing works. And we've had a few jobs similar to that, how Facebook and how the web just is mind-blowing. And I've given him a few jobs. So people contact me on WickerWorks, and they're in Italy somewhere and they don't know of anyone. So I put him in touch with him, and, you know, and so it goes. It's fascinating.
That's crazy. And for anyone who's not aware of the distances, so Seacombe Gardens is probably 5 minutes away from where you live. Exactly. Makes it even stranger.
It is.
That's fascinating. So maybe we can go back a little bit more towards the start of your businesses. I wanted to understand, did you ever have times when you weren't sure where your next customer would come from?
There was a few. In the restoration side of it, very, very few times. I think I could quite easily say maybe 4 times it ever happened. One was naturally when there was a recession here. People obviously weren't spending money on the furniture. They'd rather spend the money on groceries. I understand that. But that hit everyone. And when I had the retail side, selling furniture, that's quite seasonal, because people only want the furniture in summer more than in the winter. So there were a few times when, naturally, lack of my marketing skills, that I wasn't getting enough traffic through the front door to sell the furniture. So that was a bit tough sometimes. But as I said before, the furniture restoration always kept going. So I kept pursuing that. There's always something to do. And when it got a little bit quiet, instead of advertising and paying money out, because sometimes you don't always get that back, the return isn't always as good as what you think it is, I produced my own flyers, and I used to drive around the affluent area of Adelaide and did personal letterbox drops. And I used to take my van. If I saw something in the front conservatory, I'd go and knock on the door, and I said, I'm here in the neighbourhood, and I'd go back with a van full of furniture all the time. After 2 or 3 times like that, in fact, I threw a load of folders away years ago, where I think I printed something like 200 flyers and I only got rid of 150. So, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I was going to ask, like, how has marketing played a role in the success of WickerWorks? And I mean, you're probably saying that the letterbox drop stuff is probably well before the internet sort of thing was around.
It was,
but it obviously really worked, and I mean, it was huge back then as a form of direct mail, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, but what else have you tried in the past? From memory, I remember you doing a TV ad or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was hugely expensive for us. Yeah, we helped. I think the deal was, from memory, we supplied kind of free furniture to go into a home, a brand new home, which was being auctioned off. And I think it was related to Channel 9, which is the TV network we got here. And part of that promotional thing was that you got a free 5-minute interview, and it went on TV. So that was supposed to be just for the retail side, because I imported the furniture. It was really to push that. But I got more work out of it for restoration than I did out of retail. Yeah. So what it was telling me all the time, just stick to the restoration work and the cane supply of the raw materials rather than get into retail, because anyone can do retail. And I had competition in those days. There was a few other shops around, but no one was doing what I was doing in restoration. So I think I learned, it cost me a bit of money and time doing it, but I think I learned the fact that I should really pursue just the restoration side. And then eventually internet came out, or people started talking about having a website, and I jumped on pretty quick, and I had to pay someone to do that. A company that helped me set up the website. I designed it all, but they did all the back end work and the promotion on Google. But every time I wanted a change, it cost me big time. And so I think I only had it for 2.5, 3 years. And I quickly discovered how I could learn how to do my own website. I think you put me in touch with Weebly at the time, and never looked back. And if you learn those skills, which is not difficult, putting in the good keywords, keyword research, I did all that, you build up a good back end, which is the most important part, which drives traffic, as you know, and that's the key. I've never spent any more money on advertising after that. Not a cent. Not even on Google ads. They pay me. Oops. They pay me to have Google ads. So I'm getting, I don't know what it is now, probably at least $200 a month just in Google ads. So it pays for that.
Wow.
So there's money to be made on your website too.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's really interesting because I've recently interviewed an SEO expert, and I've been doing a little bit more research on how to get ranked on Google. So it's really impressive for me to speak to you, who's been in business for a long time. Perhaps the internet was kind of a daunting thing because there's so many different things you can do. And I think a lot of people find it very challenging. But in actual fact, if you understand your business, and if setting up a website these days takes minutes. If you understand your business, if you know how to talk about it, then you have so much opportunity to drive traffic and drive revenue to your business. So that's really cool. And so if I'm not mistaken, you also do some video marketing or something on YouTube. Is that correct?
Well, I've done some many years ago. My tutors at the time when I started learning about marketing would say, give as much content as you can away for free. So I thought, well, YouTube seems to be a good spot. So I did a number of videos, uploaded it to YouTube, and that certainly drives a fair bit of traffic.
And what are the videos, or how to?
Oh, just to do with caning, recaning a seat, how to do this, because if I'm selling materials, people want to know how to. So you can have a written tutorial, which I give like free instructions, but it's always good to refer them to videos. A lot of people prefer the video on how to, rather than reading it in text. So that's always been quite good. I haven't touched it for years, but I should. I've probably got another 6 or 8 videos sitting on my computer somewhere, but I just don't get time to do it, which I should. But anyway, so that works. I'd say YouTube is a good spot to put free content on, and naturally Twitter. I've used Twitter a bit, not so much now. Facebook is good. I often put posts up there what I've just achieved or a customer response, and of course having the Facebook group, that's not so much driving traffic to me or gaining work, but it gives you a lot more credibility. I think that's a big thing. So that's important, and I think the videos do too. If you show people that you're good at what you're doing, then it's quite easy. I mean, I can remember I didn't even have a tripod to hold the camera. I used to put the camera under my chin like this and weave away, and then the ambulance would go past, and I go like, oh, sorry, and I wouldn't edit it out. I didn't want it too professional, and I think that's a bit of a buzz. So, and Instagram now, I mean, I still can't get a grip of Instagram, but I know whenever I put a post up there, I get a fair bit of feedback from it. A lot of not just likes, but people that make inquiries, especially on Seska brewer chairs, those sort of things. Or recently I did a job for a customer who was in WA. She wanted rattan to go in her caravan to do a fit out. And she put a post up, and someone else saw that and then asked where she got the material. And then all of a sudden I get 2 caravan places One was a mobile home, the other was a caravan place in WA that wanted to buy the material from me because they got customers wanting to get their jobs done. So
yeah,
that's quite interesting.
and when you post on Instagram, do you use hashtags or anything like
Yeah,
that? Kind of what you do?
sometimes I forget, admittedly, but
Fair
yeah,
enough.
I do that. Yeah, I know how to do that now. Yeah, it's all good fun. I'm sure there's a lot more other things you can pursue out there to drive traffic, but it's a one-man show, really, so I've got enough work. I do drive a lot of traffic to my website. A lot of people contact me asking if they can build a new website for me, and I said no, it's fine. Yeah, but you're not number one. I said I'm kind of big to differ because I got every people that contact me, they say, well, I always find you on the search engine. It's always on the first pages. So that's just people just trying to get money out of you. So anyway, no, it's all good. But one thing I always do is I'm always tweaking the website. There's always something that you've missed out. So I'm always tweaking it. I'm always adding fresh content. I should be doing more to my blog, but I don't think many people go to blogs these days. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I get really little traffic going to the blog. They tend to just like the Facebook. I don't know why. Yeah. So I've gone off of that a bit, but yeah, I'm always tweaking it, just fine-tuning the website a little bit, maybe the way something is written, or a different picture, or a little bit more easy text. Because another thing is you got to learn, especially in my field, that let's treat everyone as being naive about this job. So you can't use technical terms. You can't say, just do this or do that. You've got to lay it out for them. So you kind of have to go down to basics, which takes a bit to do sometimes, but that's important to keep people enthusiastic about their job and making sure that the job is made as easy as possible for them to, that's for DIY, that's what I'm referring to, but yeah.
I think that's often one of the biggest challenges is simplifying things. Like, you're an expert in your field. You know, I'm an expert in marketing related things, but if I'm trying to explain to someone how to set up an email campaign or website, I sometimes forget that not everyone knows what I would consider basic information. That's right. So it's often a very big challenge to try and actually really get to the crux of the problem or try to spell it out in a simple manner. And from what I understand, and this is kind of inherent across everything you've talked about, is I think word of mouth has probably played a huge role in the success of your business, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone that goes to any business, whether it's a restaurant, a petrol station, or just a shop, and you've got someone over the other side of the counter and it gives you a good experience and if about your product or whatever you're doing, I think you always remember that. And if you get a good service, doesn't matter whether it's expensive or not, if you get a good service and reliable and you get an honest reaction, most people want to go back to that person. And because I feel that way, I want to give that experience to my customer. So I've done that from day dot, and it pays off because if you do a really good job, no shortcuts, go the extra mile, always give a little bit extra if you can, smile on your face, that doesn't hurt, and be honest, be reliable. When you say you're going to be there, give them a call before to confirm it, but you're going to be there on that time. Punctuality is very important. Politeness is important, and make sure the job is done as best as you possibly can. The price, I guess, really you work that out yourself over the years. You want to be fair, and I think that's the most important thing. I hate seeing business people turn around and say, "Oh, look at this guy come up with this expensive forward drive. Oh, we should be able to charge a bit more for this guy." That's wrong. You're going to go backwards. And I think you've got to be honest and upfront all the time. So I think that plays a huge point with getting customer feedback and having people come back to you time and time again. I've got customers now, because I'm getting old, as you can see, with a grey hair, saying, don't retire. I said, well, I got it one day. So no, don't. I'll be coming back to you. Some customers have been coming to me for 20 odd years. And you might think, well, that's stupid if their seat gets broken. But some of these people have got 8 or 10 seats and they might have a wild party one night. They don't care. They're coming back and get it fixed. Or their daughters or their son or whatever. So they don't go anywhere else. Not that there is anyone else, but you always get referrals back to you. And if you're a bit of a creepy person and don't do the right thing, they're not going to come back to you. They're going to find someone else to do or get rid of the chair. So it pays dividends to be polite to your customer and do the right thing. Definitely.
That's a good lesson. I think this rolls on quite well to my next question. How have you managed customer information over the years? Like, do you maintain any sort of database? And from memory, I remember you used to use like customer cards.
Oh, yeah. I still have a job card, which I write on, and I put as much information as I mean, keywords. I mean, silly little things. So I got a hopeless memory for names to start with. But funny enough, I remember the chair that I reclaimed or restored. And
what you ate that day.
Oh, what I ate that day, exactly. So I write things down, apart from the usual name, contact details and stuff. If I've had a conversation and that, say it's a lady who happens to have a daughter that's pregnant, when they've left, I'll make a note, daughter was pregnant, just so that I can come up in conversation again. And it triggers my memory too. It might be something to do with a chair or something to do with a broader pram. And I remember Auntie May, who was 99 when she passed away and gave me the phone. I write that down. And to remember something like that when they come in, that's if I can remember to see the card, of course, that pays dividends. That's really, really good. So that's my only bit of information I keep. I don't keep emails. I used to, but quite honestly, I'm not into email marketing campaigns because many of the customers are one-off. They get something restored, repaired, and that's it. So I don't need to send them emails to try and promote something. So I don't need that. But what I do keep on data is all my trade customers. That's very important because they are repeat customers. If you do the right thing from them, my trade customers would be all my carpenters, joiners, interior decorators, architects. I keep all that information. Every now and again, I might send them a little email or I phone them up. It's even better to ask how their project went, if they had any issues. And then I keep their data. So when they phone me or email up, I've got something to recall, remember what they purchased and have a conversation. Always have a conversation over the phone. I prefer that rather than email initially. And it's good. I think it's very important to have that kind of liaison with your customers.
Yeah. And I'm in the marketing space myself, and specifically marketing automation, which is about a lot of email marketing and using customer data and segments and all that sort of thing. But I think this aligns well with what you're saying. Is what I've seen is the industry has moved from this very personalized service before the internet. The internet came along, then we've gone to large email blasts of mass media type thing. And then we moved into more automating those email blasts and things like that. And now we're moving towards, leveraging technology to make a more personalized experience through artificial intelligence or just trying to leverage all of that personal information about behavior and things like that you've written on a card about, someone's pregnant, for example, using that information to create a digital relationship, so to speak, and using that at scale. But what I've also noticed is that I think the evolution is that people now craving that one-on-one customer relationship. So it it's gone full circle in a way. It's like, okay, technology is great, but it's not ever going to be as good as a phone conversation or a one-to-one interaction with someone. Yeah. And the customer relationship is really key across the whole thing. So I really like that whole experience that you just mentioned, because it's really relevant to how the world is evolving and how marketing is evolving.
I mean, I guess it depends what business you're in, but I'm fortunate that I can have one-to-one conversations with my customers. But if you're selling a product where you might not need that one-to-one conversation, so I'm lucky, and it is personal because a lot of the furniture items that I have are individual, unique pieces. So to be able to touch someone by talking to them about their piece of furniture that you're restoring for them, it gives them a lot of confidence that you know what you're talking about and they're in safe hands. Because I naturally get customers that might be a bit apprehensive about sending their furniture item to me from all the way from New South Wales and not really knowing whether I'm going to do a great job or not. I mean, they got my internet stuff, which is great, but so sometimes having a conversation with them, I think it eases it all out, and they got confident in with the work that I'm going to do, which is good.
That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to go back to how your business has evolved over the years. And one of the things that I find truly inspiring personally, as a way that you've balanced your lifestyle, your passion, and your life really, is this concept of weaving around Australia. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about what that is and how that came about and what people should know about it.
All right. Well, a little story then. Many years ago, we went on holiday to Queensland. I don't really recall. You put little kids then, and we were sitting around the swimming pool, and I noticed a lot of the cane furniture that was around the resort area needed attention. So, tongue in cheek, I just went and saw the manager, and I just said, look, I said, this is my business. What do you reckon if I could come and do all the repairs for you? And he just said, when can you start? I said, well, I wasn't expecting that answer, admittedly. I said, well, I'm on holiday and I haven't got anything here. And he said, well, that's stupid. He said, but if you do decide to do it, you can work on site here and you can have accommodation here and we can feed you if you want to. Because to take that furniture away from the resort, even if it was by one, to someone locally, if they could find someone to do that work, was a logistic nightmare to start off with. And then it's costly and la la. So to have someone actually come to them to do the work on site was a big buzz. So that kind of sowed the seed for me. And because I didn't just ask that one resort, a few other places I went to, I did exactly the same and I got the same response. So fast forward quite a number of years, because I couldn't do it. As you boys were growing up and going to school, you couldn't just take off and do that kind of thing. It took time to get that kind of thing set up. So one day we decided to have a holiday in Tasmania. A customer phoned me about a week prior to going to Tasmania. It was a driving holiday, and that person said, I've got these seats to re-cane. And I said, look, don't worry about sending them over. I'll come to you. And the girls nearly had a heart attack. So what do you mean? You're in South Australia. So no, I'm going to come on a holiday. We're going to come in there. If you can wait another couple of weeks, I'll come by and I'll do the work for you. And she thought that was great. I phoned 2 other people that I knew in Tasmania that wanted similar kind of work. So I had 3 jobs. I don't care. It was a trial thing. So we did a holiday, did 3 jobs. Could have done loads more, because if I'd done a bit more research, I would have been able to find a few more jobs, but we needed a holiday. We was only there for a week or so. So that was good. So that made me then think, if I set it up right, I can have a holiday, because I'm not one of these people that go on holiday and sit by a swimming pool or on a beach all day long. I have to do something, and it's not just sightseeing, but to be out and to see different people, different areas where they live. There's a huge buzz. So fast forward, I think it's 8 trips we've done now, and it's normally every second year. So 16 years ago, we took our first trip and we went right up to Cairns. So if anyone doesn't know where that is, that's like 4 days drive constantly from here. So it was a long way. And we took, I think, 6 weeks off, and nearly 5.5 weeks of that was work. And how do you get the work? Once again, the internet. I just created a page on the website, mobile repair service. This is where we're going to go. This is the time when we're going to be visiting. If you're interested, fill out a form, send me some pictures. I'll give a quote. If it's all good, we'll let you know what our itinerary is and zigzag up the coast and when we're going to be there. Keep in contact by phone. And that's it. And that's what we did. And after the first one, I loved it that much, I couldn't wait to do another one. And it's a great experience, not only to see Australia for us, but also to meet lovely people, and especially the country people. They were so inviting. It was wonderful. And the work was a catalyst to put it together. That was all it was. It was, for me, I'm doing a service. I get paid for it, fine. I didn't care whether it was $20 job or $200 job. It was immaterial. It was actually getting out and seeing the people and traveling, and I had a lot of fun. And we saw a lot of Australia, places we'd never ever dream of going to. We went and saw these lovely areas, and most times we stayed with these people. That was another crazy thing. A lot of the customers would turn around and say, don't stay at that campsite. Come and stay, park your van there and stay with us for a couple of days if you want to. And that's what happened.
Wow.
So yeah, we've done 8 trips now, up and down the East Coast. We've also done Central Australia. We've been to Alice Springs, and we did a big job up there. The guy didn't really want to bring his furniture down because it was quite bulky. So he said, well, if you come up for a holiday, I'll look after you. And we stayed at his place, and it was great. We got to sightsee and get paid for the job at the same time. It was brilliant. Now we got WA now. We were supposed to do that last year, but the COVID put us back there because the borders are all shut down. So we'll plan that later on next year if we can. And then I've pretty well covered every state then.
Yeah. That's remarkable. It's so cool. Like, you found your passion, you've created a business around it. You know, you've always loved traveling and road tripping, and now you've found a way to combine the two. And I guess as a bonus, you're going to places that you would probably otherwise never have visited because you're going to these customers' specific locations. And it's incredible. And if I'm not mistaken, you have on your website, you have a web page, or basically a call to action to saying weaving around Australia, and a form, basically like an order, a reservation form, right? For people to submit their jobs before you go on holiday. So you plan your holiday, you set up your page, notify anyone who wants to know that you're doing it, and then the jobs just flow in, and then you just accept the ones you want to take, right?
Pretty well.
And I remember you telling me a story about you also get jobs whilst you're on holiday that haven't been booked in.
They'd be parked at a campground and someone knocks on your window and says, I see your van, WickerWorks and blah, blah, blah. And because I've got a roof rack, and on top of the roof rack, we've got a pipe where we put PVC pipe, and we put cane strips in there, and I've got WickerWorks and mobile repair service. That's the only time it's actually on the van, when we're actually on the road. And so people read it, and then they come and have a yarn here, and people buy material off me to take back to do the DIY, or they say, are you coming back this way once you've been to such and such a place? If you are, come and visit me here, and I've got this job for you. Yeah, a lot of times we just have to knock it back because we can't do it. We just haven't got the time.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's great, you know, really, but it's a win-win, because if I can't do it, I sell the material or I post it to them when I get back. And that's another thing. We're still posting out cane materials. Even though we're on the road, we fill the van up with materials. And so consequently, every time the orders come in for, you know, a kilo of this or a couple of coils of that, or a little bit of this, a little bit of that, rattan webbing, we pull off at the campsite, and nearly every second day we're filling out the orders. We've got our credit card machine, so we get paid for it all, write out receipts, pass it all up, and go to the nearest post office and send it.
Yeah.
Keeps on going.
Perfect.
You're always working at it. It's not, you know, I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I probably wouldn't want to do it, but it's always good fun to do that. Yeah. We've got Julie, my wife, as you know, that's really heavily involved with it and all the admin side. So she loves traveling too. So it's a partnership. We're both doing it. It's good fun.
That's so good. That's amazing.
You know, that's it.
That's it.
Can't wait to do another one. I'm getting eager.
It's so amazing. I've told a few people about what you do and how you've turned what you've created with weaving around Australia, and everyone's like, wow, like that's so impressive.
It is.
And I'm quite envious of what you've created, but I think a lot of people would be quite envious of what you've created.
Can I tell you 2 little stories, which is quite funny?
Of course.
We normally travel as far north in Queensland as a place called Hervey Bay. And my brother-in-law lives in a place called Maryborough, which is very near to that place. So that's as far north as we normally travel. I was doing emails this one particular evening, staying at his place. This is middle of Queensland, Sunshine Coast. And we get an email, someone saying, I need to get some material to do all these chair backs. Got 6 dining chair backs, but as much as I would love someone else to do them, because I can't find anybody up here where he works, where he lives, no upholsterer want to do them. So I'm reluctant to have to buy the material, and thanks to my videos that I've got, he's learned, so I'll give it a go, and I'll buy the material, and you know, if you send it up to me, that'd be great. So I looked at his address, and it was a place called Bundaberg. The Bundaberg is about 2.5, 3 hours drive north of where we were staying in Queensland at my brother-in-law's. So I looked at Julia, I said, do you want to go to Bundaberg next week or in a couple of days' time? And there's a biggish job there. I mean, 6 chairs is quite good. So I said, we can go there. We've never been there. We get Bundaberg rum there. That's where they produce it. So I said, it'd be worth going there, spend a day there, and then come back. She said, yeah, all right then. So I emailed the fellow. I said, instead of me sending the material to you, would you like me to come and do the job? And that went by email. And he went back and said, what? Aren't you in South Australia? I said, you're going to fly up here? I said, no, we'll drive. So I phoned him up. I let him off the hook. I explained to him where we were. We was on a road trip. And he said, that would be absolutely amazing. So we drove up there the next day. And he was so happy that he said, he put on a big dinner for us. We stayed there overnight because we had a few drinks. He put us up, did all the chairs. They're lovely, lovely people. And yeah, and then we left and we did a job. So that was one little story, which is really good. And I'm just trying to remember what the second one was going to be now. I forget now. See, there's lots of trouble when you get a bit old. Anyway, it might come to me a bit later, but it's funny how things like that work. You know,
yeah,
it's just crazy.
All right, so I've got 2 more questions. All right, so
right.
The first one is, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in turning a craft into a business, and what should they be aware of?
If you've got your craft and you're passionate about it, that's the first thing. You've got to be passionate about it. If you're one of these people that thinks they're really good at making pots or flower arrangements or whatever, just bear in mind what the market is, whether there's a lot of people out there doing the same thing. And I think what you've got to do is try and find a niche part of that maybe someone else go, or better still, that you're really, really good at, that makes you a little bit more unique compared to the other person that's doing that craft work. So that's the first thing. And that might be quite difficult to do sometimes, but you know, I digressed a little bit. Even whilst building up WickerWorks, even though I thought I had a niche market, which I have, I went to a lot of network marketing groups, or so I should say, to learn internet marketing. And every time I went to these gurus that were telling us, they said, oh, what do you do? I said, WickerWorks, blah, blah. Nah, that's not quite a niche market. There's not enough numbers for that. There's not enough money for that. So we were looking for other niche markets, and we were wrecking our brains out for it all we never got anywhere, because it's difficult to find niche markets, until one day we was at a seminar for the weekend, and this guy just came out on stage. Stuart Siddell, his name is, a fantastic bloke, and he just said, okay, we're all in the same boat, we're all looking for something. And he just came out on stage like this. He said, everyone's looking through those holes in your hand to find that niche market you're looking for, when in fact it could well be right in front of your face. And that kind of was a light bulb moment for me, because I thought, I do get out of bed every morning passionate about my job. I love doing what I do. There's not one day I hate not doing it. It's great. And so I thought, for every bit of knowledge that Julie and I learned about the internet, about marketing, we decided to put all that into WickerWorks, and that's where we are today. Otherwise, we may have lost it. Mm. And so going back onto the craft people that want to set up their own business, doesn't matter what it is if they are really like you enjoy what you're doing. You know, if you really love that, you're going to get along there. Sometimes it doesn't matter, in my opinion, whether you're going to make a lot of money or not, because it's your life. It's a lifestyle. And if you can make a lot of money out of it, great. But isn't it lovely to be able to go to work that you enjoy? I say so many people I know, and you probably do too, that have worked all their lives and hate their jobs, that don't enjoy going to work, sitting on a train for God knows how many hours, or in traffic jams, or in an office environment. And so I'm privileged to be able to not be in that position, but because I chose my destiny. So you have to choose your own, you have to do that. You can't rely on other people. You have to do it yourself. So your niche market might come by not procrastinating and not getting up every morning and trying to find something you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
The money's a bonus. I mean, I don't think the money should come first. It's just, there's lots of times I do jobs, I never even think of what I earned that day or whether I made money or lost money on it. Because I do lose money on some business jobs.
Yeah.
Not that often these days, but you know, you just do it because I love doing it, and the money and having people pat you on the back now and again and give you a bit of good feedback. That's it. That's all you want. And one thing I did want to say though, I learned no marketing skills, and you need to do that. That would be a huge bonus. Yeah. And learn the internet, obviously. Learn how to budget. That's another good reason. Think about your overheads. That's a huge. I mean, nowadays, I have very small overheads because I work from home, and the internet is all online sales. So I don't have a retail outlet anymore, which was costing me a fortune. So if you can do that, keep your overheads down really low, and I think you should be okay. And certainly learn some marketing skills, probably from someone like yourself.
Yeah,
be a good start.
Thank you. All right. Last question, and it's a bit of a shame because this has been super exciting. I've loved every moment of this conversation, so thank you. But last question is, what is the future of Cane and Wicker furniture, and will it be around forever? I
think so. If I can train someone that does half of what I do, there's always going to be a market for it. There's always going to be Cane and Wicker furniture out there. They're still making it today, even though a lot of it, the trend now has gone for aluminium frames and plastic wicker, which I don't touch. I really don't touch it. Don't even want to know about it. But there's a lot of people that still spend money on getting their cane furniture repaired. The trend in that at the moment, we can't keep up with the demand for supplying raw materials. So I diversified in that avenue so that a lot of people don't want to spend the money in paying someone to do it. So why not give it a go yourself? A lot of people do little small jobs, basket weavers out there galore. They all want the material. So if you can supply the material, that's good. Is it dying? I don't think so. Demographically, it's changed. I don't have as many seats in as I did before because of the cost factor. You know, when I first started doing cane seats, replacement of cane seats, they used to cost about $20, $25. Now for the same thing is $99, you know? So, but then again, a liter of milk was probably only 90 cents. Now it's $2. So it's all relative, I guess. I think there's always going to be a market there. You just may have to diversify a little bit, just tweak a little bit, maybe introduce something else and follow the trend. This COVID situation is probably, I mean, it's encouraged a lot of people who are now working from home to do more DIY projects, for example. So they're, you know, that broken chair in the corner of the room is now more prominent in their life. So they're probably thinking about what they can do with their time and start taking action on that. Yeah, that's super interesting. I think that it will be around for a long time, but it will probably just evolve in different ways. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. I just hope I can find someone that might be as close to passionate as I am to, I can train up. So that's my next venture in the next year, to try and find someone. I've got someone that's working with me now, whether I can keep pursuing them, because it's got to come from the heart, you know? You don't want people saying, oh, let me take over the business, how much money you're making, because that's the wrong attitude. You really want someone to say, well, I've been quite interested in cane furniture. I like restoration workers, and every job is different. It's not, I mean, recaning seats, but there are also many times that they're so different. So there's very few days in a week that it's repetitious. Far from it. That's another unique thing. I'm not going to work like a lot of other people and they're doing the same thing day in and day out. It's always different. So that's fantastic. I hope it's around for a long time. I hope I'm around for a little bit longer doing this.
Yes, I hope so too.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. It does answer the question. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to ask is, a long time ago, you took a photo of me and you used that for some marketing material. Is that right?
Oh, I did. Yes.
So what was the outcome of that? What
Do you want me to show you now?
Yeah, why not?
Hang on. I think I still got it here. Oh, this is old. Look at this.
There you go.
That's...
Need a good caning. So is that one of your flyers, or what is that?
That was one of the flyers. We used to have exhibitions every now and again. It might be like the pram exhibition. That was always good. Once every 2 years, I did a pram exhibition. Invite all the old girls that I restored prams for to bring their prams to the showroom to show them all off, and they have a little story. And I used to bake these little flyers up and leave them around the shop. And that's how it started. That sort of stuff.
Well, I think that's all I have to ask for today, but I'm
it's been good fun.
So happy. Yeah, this is really cool. It's been my favorite marketing talk so far. So thank you so much for being part of it.
I hope it helps someone. I hope I've given some insight, good insight for people that want to pursue something for themselves. But yeah, good fun. Thank you for allowing me to come on, Greg.
You're welcome. All right.
I'll top my glass up now. It's been empty for a while.
All right. Thanks. Thank you for watching today's episode of Marketing Talks. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe to my channel and podcast. For further details on today's guest and bonus offers, please see the description below and stay tuned for the next episode.